Hey guys, welcome to TFG Tackles. It's going to be a quick one. I'm at the Sheikh Zayed Sports City Stadium in Abu Dhabi. This is the venue for the second round clash between UAE and Kyrgyz Republic. So that's why I'm here. And when I came in here, I was taking a stroll and I ran into a couple of reporters from Kyrgyz Republic who I had met earlier in Kyrgyzstan when I travelled for our away game in the Asian Cup qualifiers. So we recognized each other and we were talking, and I mentioned that if we scored one goal against Bahrain, if we beat them by one goal, or if we got a draw against Bahrain and UAE, we would be out here playing against you in tonight in the second round. And he said, I would really like that. I fancy our chances against India in the second round. And I said, more than you, I would like to have seen that. I mean, we lost to Kyrgyz Republic with a broken team, without Sunil Chhetri, in adverse conditions by 2-1. Imagine a full-strength Indian team taking on Kyrgyzstan in UAE weather. We had more than a good chance to win. And if we manage to get past the second round, that means we would be in the quarterfinals. Can you imagine India in the Asian Cup quarterfinals? Like in terms of scale and achievement, that would be immediately compared with 1964. Because we finished second in 1964, but that was after everybody and their grandmother pulled out of the tournament because it was happening in Israel. Here, it's the biggest Asian Cup ever with 24 teams. And India in top 8. Can you even imagine that? If the World Cup gets expanded to 48 teams, Asia is likely to get 8 spots, and India in top 8 implies India is World Cup quality. That's how big it would have been if we had had a chance to play against China or Kyrgyz Republic in the second round and won that match. Of course, India is not as good as right now as being top 8 in the Asia, but that's how close we came. One goal against Bahrain, we would still have a hope. We don't give away that penalty in the last moment in Sharjah against Bahrain, and we would have a fighting chance. We would be playing China, not Kyrgyzstan. Less of a chance of beating them, but we could have scrapped to a draw and taken our chances in the penalties. What I'm trying to say though is that that's how close we came, and the more I try to remember all that happened, the way we started the tournament in high hopes, beat Thailand, played such an awesome game against UAE, lost but really showed our heart, went into the Bahrain game with such hopes and dreams, and as the game was nearing the 90th minute, everybody in the stadium, in the press box, with folded hands, literally praying, few more minutes, and we're there, we're in the knockouts, and it had to happen. Anyway, it's what happened. When I'm looking back at India's run in the tournament, I don't know what to focus on. Whether the good sides, and there were lots of good things that came out of this tournament from our performance, or the bad side. Should I talk about how the Indian attack literally played with the Thai defense? Should I talk about how India were using short passes in the midfield and literally giving a heart attack to UAE defenders with their possession play? So many bright spots in India's performance, and it all went down to the gutter because India just didn't turn up. After the UAE game, I was talking to a very experienced journalist, somebody who has been in football journalism for as long as I've been alive, and he said, I saw Indian midfielders dribbling past the UAE defenders like it was nothing. And he said, now I've seen everything. When I run all those pictures back in my mind, almost seems like a broken record, because everything just comes back to that one point. To start that well, to start with that kind of vigor and ending it like that, it just doesn't seem fair. And it's not something that I and a lot of other Indian football fans will get over for a long time. But you know, it's been a few days since then, almost a week. Let's see if we can put India's performance in Asian Cup in perspective, now that we have some distance between that day of sorrow in Sharjah and today. So talking about blessings in disguise, Indian team has always been known to depend on a select few players. Used to be Baichung Renedy, Vijayan before that, others even before. I mean, ever since we had our golden generation in the 60s and the 70s, we've always had a couple of really good players who were everything for us. You know, these are the players who will carry us. If they click, we click. If they don't, we don't. This time Sunil Chhetri had a similar role, but India was not all about Sunil Chhetri. Look at the Thailand games. If Sunil Chhetri had not scored, we still got 2 goals from others. And if we are breaking down the performance by department, perhaps the highest marks will go to our defense. And this is where one very interesting thing happened. Anas Edathorika got an injury early on in the Bahrain game, and Salam Ranjan Singh comes on 4 or 5 minutes into the game. It's a do or die game. Everything is on the line. A young defender steps up to the plate, and what happens? India almost get a clean sheet. If that penalty was not given away, there's not many things that Indian defense did wrong, and something about that should soothe us, should speak good of Indian football, because we are looking at a depth in the Indian squad that hardly has ever been. I mean, imagine 5 years ago, we're playing a big game against a strong opponent, and one of our key defenders gets injured. The rest of the game, our defensive strategy will go all over the place. You know, we would not have somebody who really steps up immediately to that plate and does not get intimidated and tries as hard as he can to deliver a good performance, as luck has given him a chance. And perhaps a lot of credit for this goes to Stephen Constantine. You know, a lot of people have criticized him for not picking Suseraj or Jobby Justin, but he has, with his rotation policy or trying out different players, giving debuts to so many players, has managed to create this bunch of 50 odd players who believe, at least, maybe not all of them are capable of just stepping up and performing well in the Asian Cup, but they have that belief, they have that level of exposure that they can be trusted on to develop over time and maybe help take India to the next level. I can't remember in my lifetime, as long as I have followed Indian football, I don't remember the depth of our squad going beyond 21-22. And you always knew with one injury we were in trouble, 2 injuries and we're done for. Here we came in without Eugene-son Lingdo, without Brandon, without a lot of other players that we have looked up to in the last few years, and still we just conceded a total of 4 goals. And compare that to the 2011 tournament, we conceded 13 goals. Arguably in this case we have measurable data to show that the Indian team has progressed, and everybody who's been working with the Indian team deserves a lot of credit for that. A lot of credit will also go to the midfield because of the way they managed to absorb pressure, especially against Thailand and UAE. In the UAE game, in the first 30 odd minutes, they were even arguably more dominant, which speaks to the fact that there's increased space, there's better coordination between the players, and a performance at a higher level that we are delivering now that we have come to Asian Cup. What's the point of concern though is that while we performed well in the first 2 games, the level of performance dropped considerably in the 3rd game, and maybe that was a psychological reason, maybe that was due to fatigue. You are going through a lot, you're putting your body through a lot more wear and tear than you would face in an I-League or ISL game. So yeah, Indian players were going through the grind of their lives out here. We spoke to Danny Dagan in the lead up to the Bahrain game, and he was quick to assure everybody that fitness is not going to be an issue. We will be able to maintain the intensity, we will be able to keep up the pace for 90 minutes against Bahrain. Wasn't the case though. And it can't be just psychological. I believe the physical aspect also played a role in India underperforming against Bahrain. But then again, the modernization of fitness training in Indian football has been around for 3-4 years, and it's not gonna produce athletes with world-class fitness overnight. Maybe the ones who are getting this training from 14-15 years old, who are with the under 15, under 17, under 23 teams, they will go on in a few years to attain a level of fitness that will see Indian team able to run with a China or Bahrain for 90 odd minutes. The third positive thing that I would take away from Asian Cup is that the interest around Indian players has considerably increased. It's not just among the fans. You could see a lot of local Emiratis who were very curious about Sunil Chhetri, Sandesh Jhingan, Anirudh Thapa, and Gurpreet Singh Sandhu. It's also clubs. Local clubs have been making inquiries about whether Sandesh Jhingan is available. Clubs from Qatar, even a couple of UAE clubs apparently have called up and made inquiries with the Indian national team of all places. The strongest Asian teams have a high number of players playing abroad, especially in Europe, and a lot of these countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, who are not here, but they're a good example of this. Is that many of these players don't even live in that country. They have dual passports, and they get to play for the national team without even visiting the country for years. We are not going to do that, right? We're not going to allow Indian origin people, and we don't even the Indian government doesn't even allow dual citizenship. So our best hope is to export players to other countries and have them exposed to different levels and different styles of football as they travel and gather experience. When they come back to the national team camp, that will enrich everybody, as the experience gets shared, as other players also try their luck and expose themselves to a high level of competition in a country where the football culture is much more developed than ours. Gurpreet Singh Sandhu is a prime example. He went to Norway and turned into an absolute beast. It's when the Indian national team performs well in important tournaments like this is when foreign interest and even foreign scouting in Indian football can go up, and in that aspect it's mission accomplished. Hopefully we will see more and more Indian kids taking their chances abroad. We're already seeing some who are going abroad and joining academies in Spain and other countries in Europe. But that has to happen more and more in much higher numbers for us to have a hope of getting 4 or 5 really good players down the line who can really push the envelope in Indian football and take the team to the very next level. But the most important lesson from Asian Cup, in my opinion, is to manage our expectations. Football is a sport that's played seriously by 200 odd countries around the world, and there's levels to this game. It's not like cricket or hockey where you get better than 3 or 4 countries and suddenly you're the top 5 in the world. But here, progress comes in very small installments. We're gonna get better than Bahrain maybe. Like we lost to them 5-2 8 years back, and we almost held them to a draw. That's measurable progress. Maybe 8 years later we'll be able to beat them. Maybe we will be even beating China after 8 years. But we will still fall short against Iran or Saudi Arabia or South Korea or Japan. It's not about the Blue Tigers becoming world beaters. It's never been about that. It probably won't happen in our lifetimes. But we will slowly see us improve and hopefully get into the World Cup. Maybe in our inaugural World Cup we will lose every group stage game by 5-0. Doesn't matter. We made it there. It's a measurable progress, and a long-term strategy if adopted by AIFF, to go for these small measurable amounts of progress, well, there's no limit to what India can do within a 50-year period. So yeah, the loss to Bahrain sucks. That we did not make it to the second round sucks. But don't lose sight of what we did do. You know, what we have done is better than the Indian national team has been able to do for the last 50 years. And that's not nothing. Right now, we're not even in the top 100 of the FIFA rankings. So progress for us is not winning big trophies. It's failing, but against better teams. A lot of people will look back at the game against Bahrain and say, okay, let's forget it, it was a bad night, let's move on and hope for better luck next time. I would say don't forget. Remember every single loss. Sandesh Jhingan did not forget about India's loss to Bahrain in 2011. He remembered every bit of it. And that's what fueled him, that's what drove him to better this time, and we almost set the record straight. So remember this loss, remember every single game we will lose in the Asia Under-23 qualifiers in March. We will lose games in the World Cup qualifiers when it comes around in September. There is no conceivable scenario where India goes on a big tournament and finishes that with a win right now. But every single time we will go up to the next level. We will lose to a team that's better than the last team we lost to. And then one day in the distant future, all that will change. It always happens with one game. There's going to be one game where we will go in as underdogs and beat the favorites. And suddenly, India will be within touching distance of that exclusive table of world elites in football. And that day, victory will taste sweeter than ever because you remembered every single loss that happened along the way. Until then, keep the faith and don't run away from the grind. Anyway, after this game, I'm getting out of UAE. It's been a fun 3 weeks. Could have been much more, but can't help it. India is no longer in Asian Cup, and it's time for me to return home as well. This tournament has been memorable in many ways. There's been a lot of goods and bads, and I feel privileged to have been able to share this with many other fans like me who traveled all the way to UAE, Blue Pilgrims, Manjapada, all the resident Indians in this country. And yeah, we came together and we really witnessed something special. But it's in the past now. Time to go back, focus once again on I-League and ISL. Indian football will go through a lot of change. There's going to be a new coach who will bring in a new philosophy and new sets of players. Hopefully the existing batch of players will also evolve over time. They're young, most of them are yet to reach their prime, and it's going to be an incredible journey to watch them grow and achieve their dreams. Next week we will come back with a new episode of TFG Tackles from back in our homeland. Thanks for watching.